Today's supplies: canvas, or you can use cardboard or paper, a cup of water, paintbrushes, paper towel. I have a couple of different paintbrush sizes, but really just a bigger one and something smaller will do. You don't have to have so many. Paint, I'm using acrylic, but you're welcome to use whatever you have. Tempera, watercolor, even colored pencils. You can draw this along with me. So I'm using red, yellow, white, blue, and black. All right, hello. We're gonna be painting the tropical sunset today. And my name is Melissa from Paint Party LI. I'll be painting along with you step by step. What you wanna do first is get your canvas ready. You don't have to have it on an easel. Laying flat on the table is fine. You might wanna put down some newspaper or a piece of plastic. All right, I'm using acrylic paints today, but whatever you have is gonna be fine. So if you have watercolor or you have tempera paints, or even if you wanna just draw it along, maybe using colored pencil or markers. All right, so we're gonna get started by just wetting the canvas. If you're using canvas, we're just gonna prep it. So I'm grabbing my bigger paintbrush and some water. I'm gonna go ahead and wet the canvas. This is just getting it ready for the paint, prepping it. Helps you to not have to add so much water as you're going along. Okay, so just a nice thin coat. If you see it dripping down, you just want to spread it out a little bit so the water's not dripping down your canvas. All right, so I'm just going to spread it out before we get started. All right, so now I'm going to add some yellow right to the middle. All right, starting with my big brush, my bigger brush. Got some yellow paint, and I'm going to go just above the halfway up mark with some yellow paint, dragging it across, adding that yellow right in the middle. So the idea is to make the stripe bigger than you're going to actually see it, because when we add the next color on top, we're going to overlap and blend them together. All right, so I'm getting yellow right across the middle, all the way up to the edges. All right, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to dip into the tiniest bit of red paint. Okay, just a little tiny bit on the edge. And now I'm going to overlap while it's still wet, so that it'll start to turn orange. Okay, so I'm taking a little tiny bit of red with the yellow still on my brush. And I'm doing orange paint right here. And I'm going to do some that goes right along the bottom as well. Okay, so I'm overlapping the edge of that yellow paint, brushing up, pulling it down, leaving a little bit of that pure yellow right in the middle. Okay, and I'm doing that on both sides. Now, once you paint it in there, if it looks like it has a real hard line where the two colors separate, you're just gonna take your brush right back and forth right across that, and it'll start to blend it in to the two colors so that it starts to become almost like it starts to change from the yellow to the orange. Okay, you can always go back in with some yellow and add it right over if you feel like you're losing some of your yellow in the middle. Okay, remember when we use the red, we're just using a tiny, tiny bit, because it'll really take over very quickly. Okay, so I've got a slight orange next. Okay, and again, I'm gonna make those stripes a little bit bigger than they really need to be, because when I do my next color, I'm gonna overlap a little bit. Okay, so I'm taking my red on my brush. It still had a little bit of yellow on there. Carrying that orange through. Okay, until I then switch to just a solid red. So now at this point, most of my yellow is off my brush. You really don't need to clean in between. I'm going to do red up here. I'm going all the way up to the top. I'm leaving a little bit of white right on the side edges and the corners. And I'm going to do the same thing down here with the red, overlapping the edge of the orange, going into a solid red. This one I'm not going to bring all the way down, just close. Okay, and then I'm going to clean off my brush. When I do that, I'm going to tap it all the way down to the bottom of the cup, getting all the paint out. Okay, if you don't tap it down to the bottom of the cup, you're not going to get all that paint out if you're just swirling it around in there. And you're going to wipe it off on your paper towel. I'm going to go into some blue next. Okay, so for my blue that I have here, I'm just adding a touch of white to it because it's real dark. Okay, and now I'm going to start to fill in all the empty space with that blue, overlapping a little bit of the edge of that red as I go, and it's okay. You'll get a little purpley kind of look to it. Okay, and I'm pulling it down in the corners a little bit more. All right, so it gives it almost like a little bit of an arched look on top. I'm going to do the same on the bottom. Eventually we'll be going over it with black as well, but right now I'm going to overlap that red a little bit. While it's still wet, just kind of brushing back and forth where the two colors meet. And I'm going to take this blue all the way down to the bottom. Of the painting. Okay, you're going to clean off your brush when you're done with that. Okay, so I'm letting the background dry a tiny bit, and I'm going to mix just the slightest tiny bit of black into some of my red. Now you only want to take just a really tiny bit because it'll really take over and the whole color will look black. Just making a slightly deeper red, okay? So I have the regular red there, a little bit deeper red right there. And I'm using a smaller brush now. What I'm going to do, my brush is a flat brush, so I'm going to turn it sideways like this and just do some little dash marks in here to give it a little bit more texture looking in the red. So I'm using that red with a tiny bit of black in it, and I'm going to do these brush strokes that kind of all overlap each other, all in the red section, and drag a couple of them down into that orange section. You won't need very much paint for this, just a little bit on your brush, adding a little bit in there as you go. And I'm going to do that into the bottom section as well where the red is. Okay, so I'm just doing, and it doesn't have to be totally dry for this background. You just want it to be not so super wet. So just wait a couple of minutes before you start this, or you can always blow dry it. Okay, so I'm doing this in the red section, going up into the orange just a little bit, all the way across in the red. And then I'm going to drag a few down into the blue, just a few, and then a few up here as well. Okay, so I'm just getting a few little lines, horizontal lines, brushing them into the red. I'm going to clean off my brush, and I'm going to mix now a tiny bit of black into that blue. Taking a little tiny bit, and I'm going to mix it into that blue that I was using, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a texture look by just doing some little dashes in there. It just makes it slightly darker than the blue that you started with, going all the way across, filling in all of that blue up top, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And you'll see it's just a little bit darker. Adding in some lines as I go, all the way across. Filling in the entire blue there. I'm going to drag a few of those blue ones up into the red. Okay, doing the same thing up top as well. Just dragging a few of those blue ones down into that red, so it starts to kind of all blend together there. Okay, and then I'm going to clean off that brush, dry it off. Going into some black paint now, and I'm going to start to mark off all the black areas in here. So first I'm going to start with a horizon, I've got the black paint on my smaller brush. Again, I'm gonna hold it horizontal if you have a flat one. If you have just a round one, just put some black paint on it. The key is to hold it real close to the bristles so you can get a little bit more control over it, okay? And I'm not gonna press down very hard either. So what I wanna do is just kind of drag it across gently. Okay, so I'm gonna go right in the middle of that yellow. Doesn't have to be in the middle of your canvas, just right in the middle of that yellow. And I'm going to drag all the way across very gently. You see I'm not pressing down very hard because I want the middle piece to be kind of skinny. Okay, and once you get a line all the way across there, now we're going to add some little mountainy area in the background here. And to do that, again, I'm just using the tip of the brush, dragging it along. I'm going to make it skinnier as it goes towards the middle. I'll do the same thing over here. I'm just dragging it very gently, tapering it off a little skinnier in the middle, leaving room for a little sun there. Okay, and I'm going to fill them in completely black. If your yellow is a little bit wet still, that's fine. The black will cover it up well. Okay, now I'm going on to the other side and I'm going to fill that in as well, all black. Filling that completely in. I'm going to give us a little land for the beachy part on the bottom because we have some water here. Give it a little bottom part here, some land. I'm going to do the same kind of concept. Right, so I'm going to draw my line in first, giving it a little bit of a hill on the side, dips down towards the middle and goes back up again. And then I'm just going to fill all of that in with black paint on the bottom. Okay, filling that all in across the bottom. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush off. While that's drying, we're going to mix a little green paint. So I'm taking some blue and some yellow. I'm just going to mix a green, depending on your blue. It's going to be, depending on what shade it's going to be. So I'm going to make kind of a deep green. Mixing some more blue into that yellow. You won't need a ton of it. You don't have to mix a whole lot. Okay. Once you get that green paint in there, we're going to start putting in the palm tree palms and then eventually the trunk as well. So I'm going to start by just making the top of the palm tree shape and then I'll put the trunk in there. So I have the smaller brush. And now I want you to kind of think of it as being the way a firework goes. It comes up and it goes down, comes up and goes down, and that's going to be for the bottom pieces and the top. So I'm going to start that right here above this little land mass, and you can overlap it if it does, that's fine. So I'm going to drag it up and pull it down from a center point, up and down. Now on the left side, remember if this were a little firework, it would go up and it would come down. Same over here. Okay, and then I'm going to clean my brush off. Now, if you have brown paint, you're going to use brown with a little bit of black. Since I'm using these colors here, I'm going to mix a little bit of green and red, and that's going to give me a brown. Okay, so I'm going to take just a little bit of red and mix it into that green paint. What it's going to do is give me a pretty good brown color here. I'm going to add a little tiny bit of black to it. Right, and I'm just going to drag this down from the center point of where all the palms are. Give it a little bit of a curve and have it come right back into this land here. Now it's okay if you drag a little bit of that black in there, we want it in there. I'm going to go back in and kind of make this a little bit more pronounced. You might need to add a little tiny bit of white to your brown. just so it shows up in front of that black. Okay. And then you're going to put your brush in the water. At this point, you want to be using the skinniest brush you have. Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit more green here so I can start putting in those little palms. Okay, so I have a little yellow and blue together, making that nice green color. I'm going to use my little skinny brush. And each one of those little lines that I drew for the palm tree, I'm now going to add some little palm leaves that come off of them. So underneath, I'm going to come up and over, up and over, up and over, going all the way down. The trick to this is make the last one pointy. Okay, I'm going to move this a little bit closer so you can see that a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to do each one with a little curved line coming down from the bottom with that green paint and that skinny brush. Now when we go to the other side, same thing, up and over, coming down, adding those little palm leaves in. I'm going to do the same thing up here till I have all 4 of those with little palm leaves at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to go back in and fill those in, but before I do, I'm going to add some to the top as well. When I do the top of each one, it's just going to be a little curve that kind of goes over and meets the edge, so it starts to look a little bit more fluffy. So you'll see as I go in, we're just going to go up and over, so that it has on both sides of that middle spine of the palm leaf. Okay, going up and over for each one. Now I'm just going to take that same color and I'm just going to go back through and put a few more little brush strokes so that it's a little bit more full throughout. This is with that same color green. Okay, just so it's a little thicker. I'm going to now do the same thing with that green with a tiny bit of black mixed in. So I have the green here. I'm going to take just the tiniest bit of black, just so I can make it a little bit darker. And I'm going to go back in and add a few of those so they're not all exactly the same color. Okay, doing the same thing to each one of them. You don't have to outline each one or go over every single one, just a few here and there will do. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to mix a little bit of white in there. So I'm just taking a tiny bit of white and now mixing that with the same green I was just using. Spin it so it gets nice and pointy. And I'm going to go and add a few of those in, just so I have a few different greens in there. Okay, so this one's more white in it. So they start to really get filled in, kind of fluffy looking. Right. When you're done with that, you're going to throw that tiny brush in the water. Okay, so once you have that palm tree in there, we're going to go ahead and clean off a medium or a large size brush. I'm going to use the medium one here, cleaned it off. And now I'm going to mix a little white with some yellow. Right, so I'm just mixing a little white and yellow. The reason I'm putting the white in there to do the sun is so that it kind of blocks out a little bit of anything going on back there, and it'll make it pop a little bit more. So I have white mixed with yellow. I'm going to hold it real close to the bristles, and I'm going to kind of draw with it. If you need to kind of rest your pinky on the canvas just to anchor it, that'll help give you a steady hand. I'm going to make a little half circle, and then I'm going to fill that in. Again, I just have yellow with white mixed in there. I just want it to be a little bit lighter than the color in the background so it pops and shows up. Once you've got the sun in there, your whole thing is complete. You can go ahead and take your tiny brush with whatever color you like and sign your initials in the corner. We're all done. Thanks for painting with me today. See you soon.